everybody. I'm Hillary Atkin from the Atkin Report, and I'm so excited to welcome Jewel Palavac and Eric Nelson from Diary of the Grizzly Man to this edition of Hillary's Happy Hour. Jewel and Eric, how are you doing?
We're doing great. Happy to be here with you.
Doing well. Thanks for having us.
Well, thank you. The Grizzly Man, of course, is Timothy Treadwell, who infamously was killed by a bear in Alaska's Katmai National Park after camping there for 13 seasons in a row and studying the grizzly bears and their habitat. This documentary is all his own footage, some of it never seen before. Let's go ahead and take a look at the trailer.
Here on the Big Green, it is not uncommon to have bears in front of my tent, calmly grazing.
Hi, Tintin.
There could be as many as 20, 30, even 100 bears during a given day. And I've been part of that for over a decade. This is my life, this is my world here in the Grizzly Sanctuary of Alaska.
Jewel and Eric, you are the producers, and Timothy Treadwell is credited posthumously, of course, as the director. But talk to us about how you worked to make sure that these were the stories he wanted to tell.
Well, Timothy not only shot 100 hours of video over the 13 years, he wrote voluminous diary entries that described what he thought was the most relevant, dramatic, and vivid experiences he had. So by using the diary entries, that became the script for the images, because often he would film and then come back to his tent and write about what happened. So the title Diary of the Grizzly Man is a very accurate depiction. So Timothy's own adventure that he wrote about became the script to the film. So we just married his images with his diary descriptions.
You knew Timothy back in the day, even before he started going on expeditions to Alaska, which he did from 1990 to 2003. Tell us about your experiences with him as a friend, as a person, and what it was like reading those diaries.
Well, you know, he was pretty much what you see is what you get. I mean, there was not really much of any surprises in the diaries when I read them, but it was definitely true to life. I mean, when he started, he could barely work a camera. He didn't really have any video camera. He was terrible technologically, but he had a drive, and he had an ambition, and he had a love of animals. And the thing that really resonated with me when I actually sat down and read the diaries was how and looked at the film. I mean, I looked at the film a lot. I mean, we had little fundraisers and we would make PSAs for our educational programs, but I never really read anything until after his death. And it was really awesome to see how he really had grown. You know, he grew as a filmmaker, he grew as a photographer, and how he really grew as a person, really being immersed in the place that he loved most on earth.
Both of you have been with this story and with Timothy for several decades. You were producers on the acclaimed Werner Herzog documentary, Grizzly Man, in 2005. So please talk to us about that experience. And then I'd like you to compare that film to your documentary series.
Well, Grizzly Man came about, I had reached out to Jewel after Timothy's passing about another project that we were doing for the Discovery Channel. And it's a long story, which I'll try to compress, but that turned into the feature film Grizzly Man. And I had met Werner at a film festival, and we'd become friends, if not colleagues, or colleagues, if not friends. And when I told him about what we had, he wanted to direct the film. And it was the first feature documentary I ever did. And it was very clear from the inception of the project that it was going to be Werner's view of nature contrasting with Treadwell's view. He was fascinated with Treadwell as a character, as a visionary, as a delusional visionary, I think Werner would say. And that was the story he wanted to tell. And he told it brilliantly in Grizzly Man. But in the process of telling that, the film that Treadwell died to make, the nature film he was making up there, was not shown. It was Grizzly Man was the making of that film. So Jewel and I always knew there was another film lurking there that could make the film that Timothy died to make, which became this project. So both Grizzly Man and this film are sort of on parallel tracks. Grizzly Man is kind of Werner's brilliant take on Treadwell as visionary filmmaker and a debate between their perspectives on nature. Diary of the Grizzly Man is the film that Treadwell wanted to make, and people can take both individually, collectively, in any order they want, and get a real sense of what this man did for 13 years. And then maybe it's important to have the discussion, was it worth it? What was he doing? These are all debates, questions with no real answers. Jewel, I mean, what do you think?
I think you make a lot of good points. I mean, I was comfortable with Eric from something we had worked on, bear related, right around Timothy's death. And then when he broached the subject of Werner Herzog, I had a lot of different offers from people to do documentaries. And I knew that Timmy always said, you know, if something happens to me, you have everything. If something happens to me, make a kick-ass movie. So I thought, you know, who better than to make a kick-ass movie than Werner Herzog? Because from things I had seen about Werner, there was a documentary, Burden of Dreams, by, it's Les Blanc, right?
Les Blanc, about the making of Fitzcarraldo.
It's the making of Fitzcarraldo. And even though they were obviously very different people, there was sort of, and Werner, I believe, recognized it as well once he started looking through the footage, as more of a kindred spirit of a person that's very determined, very charismatic and enigmatic, and someone that never would give up for the vision that they had. So I thought that that Werner would do a good job with Timothy's footage and make a kick-ass movie. But also, you know, he was a gifted filmmaker. He was a great photographer. And like Eric said, those Grizzly Man was, Timothy was a character in Werner's movie. And in this, he is the complete star of the show, as he probably would have wanted you to see it.
Well, having seen all the episodes, I absolutely agree with you, because maybe what was a little bit obscured in Werner's documentary were Timothy's talents as a filmmaker and especially as a photographer, which you showcased so beautifully in this film. I'd love to hear more about the still photography, and also some of the video too is so incredible that he got so up close with these animals.
Well, both is correct. Grizzly Man didn't use, I think hardly used any of Timothy's stills, if any. And those were shot on 35 millimeter gorgeous stills. I think he shot, Jewel said, 10,000 images.
Yeah, probably about 10,000.
That we boiled down to maybe 50 in Diary of the Grizzly Man. It was quite a ruthless selection process. And his video footage, as good as it looked when he shot it and as good as it looked in Grizzly Man, still suffered from being shot on early generation video equipment. And what we've done in the new project is we've brought the footage to widescreen, restored the footage, color corrected every frame, and really sharpened it up using technology that simply didn't exist 15 years ago when we made Grizzly Man. So we're trying to bring the Treadwells art, his photography, his filmmaking into if not the 21st century, to be compatible with other nature documentaries that you can find on Netflix or National Geographic. Because before, Timothy just didn't have the resources other than his still photography to do it. But he did have one thing that those nature photographers didn't, was an absolute commitment to getting as close to the animals as possible. And whether anyone likes to admit it or not, he had a relationship with the animals that allowed him to get that close. And unfortunately, it could only go so far, but I know of no nature photographers at that level of access and commitment to grab these sort of images. Do you, Jill?
No, I really don't. And when he first started, he didn't, he had like a little point and shoot sort of camera, and we would just get everything developed. And so it was a few years into his expeditions where he got better and better equipment. And by then, some of the animals that had been cubs when he first started were now mother bears themselves. So Timothy was kind of part of their landscape, you know, whether he was their friend or ally or what, they definitely were used to him being there. So I think that that submersion into the secret world of the grizzly was paramount, was the reason he could, you know, get as close as he did, because they just were totally used to him.
Well, Timothy was very well aware of the dangers, and he spoke very specifically about them in the 3rd episode of your documentary series. So how do you both reconcile what happened to him?
Well, there's an inevitability to it. Jewel had a much more intense personal relationship. I came in as a spectator, to be honest with you. But my analysis was, Treadwell knew the risk he was taking and wouldn't have at all been, I think was in some level would not have been surprised what happened, though I'm sure he was shocked when it happened. So there is sort of an inevitability, and it's sort of the price he paid for this kind of extraordinary experience he had for 13 years. And one can argue it's incredible he made it 13 years living in that environment with that kind of world around him. I don't know, Jewel, we talked a lot about all of this when we made Grizzly Man, and Werner was certainly privy to the conversations too. There was a lot of discussions going on about Timothy and his motives. So, you know better than anyone. So I'll defer to you, as I did back in 2005.
Well, I mean, I do believe that, like I said, he really wanted to immerse himself into the world of the grizzly. And I think maybe in the end, that's exactly what happened. He was treated by perhaps a subadult bear like another bear. And I know that there was, he was very dramatic, the inevitability, I might not make it, this might be my last time, which were all very true. But I really don't think he didn't want it. He really
didn't want it.
didn't.
He was hamming it up too. It was dramatic, and it was good television.
He didn't have a death wish. And he, I bet at the very end, was sad to his core and shocked that it actually was happening to him, that he had, come on, at the end of the day, wasn't mauled and killed because he was in their face with a camera or getting too close with the video. He went out in the night and went to the bathroom, and there you have it.
What would you think, especially Jewel, for you, that Timothy would like his legacy to be?
I think he would like his legacy to be someone who was at the forefront of what now is the selfie culture, or just the document your world, like let everybody in, let everybody, show people this world that really many people hadn't been able to see beforehand. And I think that his legacy would also be for children and for younger people, that especially in the forefront today with the way everything's going ecologically, that this is your planet. It's your national park. You are a steward of the planet. So if it's something that you're interested in preserving, stand up and talk about it and make it known.
Well, I want to thank you so much as we're wrapping up our happy hour. Eric and Jewel, I want to propose a toast to you and the success of your film, Diary of the Grizzly Man, out on VOD. You can find it on Apple, Amazon, and other platforms.
Thank you so much. Cheers.
Thank you. I don't think I have the same thing you've got in your drink, but I will be happy to toast that.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers. Thanks, Hillary.